All right, we are doing rescue knots, most commonly used rescue knots for the rescue team. Start off with a few definitions. This is the working end or the tail. This is the standing end of the rope. And we've got knots, which definition of a knot is something that can be tied onto itself and it doesn't need anything else. A hitch is something that needs an object to tie onto or to hitch onto. A bend is something that ties two pieces of rope together. So this is a bight of rope, B-I-G-H-T. These are parallel, and this is a loop. When we tie a knot, we want to have low gain for rigging. This would be a knot that has high gain. The loop is large. What we want to have is low gain, so this loop would be small as possible, small as practical, so we don't lose all this distance. Very important to have a knot be tied, dressed, and then set. In other words, tightened up. So you first tie it, you dress it, make sure there's no crosses in there, and then you set it tightly. Alright? Our first knot is the bowline. We're going to go pretty fast through these because there's quite a few, and you'll be able to rewind and pause and take a look. So for the bowline, our most useful knot, we make a small loop inside of the larger loop. Thread the tail down through, stay on this side of the standing part, and follow it back through. These should be parallel. The bowline is not complete without a safety knot, because one of the advantages of the bowline is it's easy to untie, but with movement it'll untie itself. So it needs a safety knot on it. Another safety we use is the Yosemite tie-off, or what we call the retrace. Alright, so after you tie the bowline, if you see this hump, that's the direction you want the tail to go, up. All the way around the outside, and follow the standing part through the small loop. We set it and dress it, and that's the complete bowline. You should see parallels here. Nothing's crossed, everything is dressed. That makes for a strong knot. So that's the bowline with a retrace. Another thing to keep a sharp eye out for in tying the bowline is at this stage you have a choice of going down or coming up through the small loop. If you come up, you can see right here that it's going to try to untie the knot. If you go down, it will actually weave the knot, which is very important for tying this knot properly and quickly. Alright, so the reason for that is you may make a loop this way, in which case you'd have to come up and around, or the loop might be this way, where you'd go down and around. Once you understand that, you can tie this knot in any position. In fact, it's a good idea to practice this with the tail on the right, tail on the left, as long as these are parallel, you got it. And so that's two different ways of tying it. tail on the left, tail on the right, or it may be this way, maybe that's around your body, tail on the right, and then safety it off, tail on the left. And again, the Yosemite tie-off, if you see this little hump here, you want this to go up, down and around, and everything is parallel. That's the Yosemite tie-off or the retrace. Alright, so there's the simple bowline. Double bowline, we take a bite and we do an overhand knot, fold it back. This is bowline on a bite. And then grab itself. Very important to pull on this side, not on this side. Bowline on a bite. Alright, it's bowline on a bite. Make an overhand knot with the bite, fold it back, grab itself, and pull only on this side. Okay? That's bowline on a bite. The double bowline is where you're going around an object with the rope doubled. You have a bite, make your small loop, okay, do your retrace, everything's doubled, usually for an anchor knot. Make sure these are not crossed. Everything parallel. If everything's parallel, it's a strong knot. Double bowline. We use these around if we have multiple trees or anchors and we're using one rope for several anchors. That's what we'll use. Bowline with a bite is a directional knot. So we take our small loop like a regular bowline, take a bite and thread that through. And we're going to be grabbing onto both of these loops. As usual, pull on the standing part. The tail is going straight down, the direction is this way. That's the bowline with a bite. Bowline on a coil. Here's your coil. Actually, we have to show you the snap bowline first because we're going to use that. Snap bowline takes your bowline small loop, fold it over, push the standing part up, take your tail, thread that through, grab both, pull on the standing part, which is very important. So it's just a regular bowline. Tail is on the inside. So once again, small loop, fold it over onto itself, push the standing part through, grab both the tail and itself, and pull on the standing part. That's the snap bowline. Retrace. And that's a complete bowline, tied, set, and dressed. Alright, back to the bowline on a coil. We've got a couple loops around our anchor. We make our small loop pass it under the coil, and we do our snap bowline. Grab itself, pull on the standing part, and that's bowline on a coil. Advantage. Alright, the Portuguese bowline, you have 2 anchors. Make your small loop, pass it under like you did with the bowline on a coil. Pass the tail through, grab the 2, pull on the standing part, and that's the Portuguese bowline. Now the advantage to this with 2 anchors is you can adjust the direction of your load. The load's going this way. If it's coming from this direction, you can adjust it. This part of the loop slides through and I can change the direction. If I lose one anchor, it's still going to hold on the other anchor. So that's a very good anchor knot. Alright, bowline. Bowline on a modified bowline on a bite. So we take a bite, we do our overhand knot just like we did with regular bowline on a bite. Fold back, pull itself through, but we're going to stop here and take only one side. Okay, that gives us the ability to put carabiners in. Our anchors go here, and this will also be adjustable. These anchors, for this to work, have to be secure anchors. If I lose one, I'm going to get a big jerk. It'll still hold it, but it's used generally with a more secure anchor. That's the modified bowline on a bite. Last bowline in this series is the high strength bowline. So you know how we do the loop, the small loop? We're going to do 2 of those and then tie the bowline. With the retrace, this makes the bowline a little bit stronger because we have these 2 loops in here. So in the very beginning you just make 2 loops instead of just 1. And that's it. So now on to the figure 8. Figure 8 is, here's the overhand knot. So we go around one more time for the figure 8. This is a good stopper knot at the end of a rope so you don't rappel off the end of it. Alright, so here's the figure 8 doubled. So you just take a bite of rope, double figure 8, dress it, and set it. Everything should be parallel. So here is a figure 8 on a bite. Alright, we start to do the figure 8, pass another bite through that hole, fold it back, and make sure you pull on this side. Grab the standing part, dress it. This is a very high strength version of the bowline. Can't have any of those crosses. We like to have our nuts so that you can take a picture of it and put it in a magazine. All parallels. That's figure 8 on a bite. Figure 8 follow through, typically used for climbing. We have a figure 8, put this through our harness or to an anchor, and we just follow it through. We're following the original figure 8 knot, keeping everything parallel. So normally this is a tree or your harness where you cannot do this. Alright, now we're going to do a directional figure 8. So we're going to make our loop, extend the loop, and we go around and through the original loop. And once again, everything should be parallel. So this direction is down, nice and strong. Alright, so we did figure 8, double figure 8, figure Alright, so this would be a figure 8 if I went through there. Figure 8. If I go one more time, it would be a figure 9, figure 10, or figure 11. Figure 11 is a nice strong figure 8. The figure 8, when loaded heavily, tends to bind up and it's hard to untie. Figure 11 gives you much more wraps, greater chance of untying this knot, and it's high strength. On to hitches. We have our very standard clove hitch, crossover. Alright, so we take a loop around a post. A hitch has to have something to tie to. We cross it over and then feed through here. So you're going to see these two opposing each other. Okay, that's a clove hitch. It'll untie itself, so you got to keep an eye on it. Another way to do a clove hitch is to take one loop, another loop, the same direction, pass one under the other, and then you can put it on top of a post. It's the same hitch, clove hitch. Constrictor hitch, we start to do the clove, which I would go under there, but instead I'm going to go under this X. This is a constrictor. This will hold much better than the clove because it constricts itself with this. So you can use this on a more slippery pole where the clove hitch you could use on a tree, which the bark gives you some friction. Another way to make the constrictor hitch, if you have access to the top of your object, make a Z, cross one loop on top of the other and fold them together. Same hitch. Constrictor, this makes it hold tight. Alright, clove hitch, constrictor hitch, half hitch. This is a half hitch. Normally not used by itself. We normally put 2 half hitches, maybe 3 half hitches. So it slides and it'll cinch up onto the object. Very useful. Half hitches. Half hitches are tied the same direction. Prusik hitch will also slide on the rope. We're going to do 3 round turns across this part, two more round turns, and you should have these two parallel, and if you dress it, it'll grab onto itself. That's a Prusik. Mule hitch, something you would use around an anchor or tying off a figure 8, is just simply half hitches. When you hear the term mule hitch, it's really just a doubled half hitch, a couple of half hitches, mule hitch off a running anchor or off of your harness. Okay, Munter hitch can be used as an improvised rappelling hitch. You make a loop, fold it onto itself, and clip your carabiner through it. That's the Munter hitch. Okay, this will allow you to rappel. Depending on the size of the rope, you might need a little more. So we can do a double Munter, 2 loops, fold it onto itself. Gives you more friction. All right. Super Munter, you first tie a regular Munter and then you just double it. So you should see something that looks like a trident with the Super Munter. A lot of friction here. Something you would use only on a small cord. Even this 8mm is a little bit much for the Super Munter. Okay, butterfly knot, 2 loops around your hand. The 3rd loop goes in the middle. And then take the outside and wrap it around. Dress it and then set it. Very good middleman knot. Butterfly. Butterfly is good for a middleman knot, or if you have a cut in the rope or a fault, you can isolate it by putting that fault right here. Okay, now on to bends, which bends are tying 2 ropes together. The most important one we use is the fisherman bend. Okay, so we wrap 2 loops back on itself. Tail should be going out this way. On the other side, we just do the same thing. 2 loops back on itself. When this cinches up, it's going to be, if you have a full rescue load on it, it's going to be difficult to untie it. Make sure you got enough tail. We like to have at least 6 inches of tail. When you tie this, you should have these two angles mating together. First time I didn't have that. So these two, when you load them, they slide together and cinch up nice and tight. Nice tail like this, a little longer than that one. Alright, that's a fisherman bend. Double sheet bend. It's an old sailing knot, usually used with a larger line here and a smaller line here. So you first make a loop here, a bite in the rope, these are parallel, pass the tail of your small line through the bite, come around and pass that under itself. So you see how it traps itself. And curiously, it looks exactly like a bowline. So we do that twice. This is another knot that needs a safety on it because it will tend to untie itself if it gets loosened or vibrated. You can actually retrace a sheet bend or double becket by doing this. Follow that through. Sorry, it actually goes this direction. Easy enough to be confused. So everything should be parallel. Double becket with a retrace. Alright, so we start with a bite in the line, pass the tail up through, come around, and pass under itself twice. Okay, to do the retrace, we take the tail and run it right down that little racetrack there. These should be parallel, these should be parallel. And that's a secure bend. Alright, that's the double sheet bend. It's also called the double becket. It's a knot we don't, or a bend we don't use very often, but it's a square knot. Two lines together. Square knot, these should be parallel, those should be parallel. This will want to untie itself also. Alright, tensionless hitch. So we've got ourselves a nice tree, and whenever we put knots in our rope, we weaken it. So the tensionless hitch is designed to keep the tension off of the rope. So we do a knot here or carabiner. This is the tree, and we're pulling in line with the bend around the tree. So that way there's very little tension on the knot. Most of it is under nice bends all the way around the tree. That's a tensionless hitch. Alright, one last one is a cinch knot onto a carabiner. Okay, so this is our fisherman 3 times. This cinches up onto the carabiner. and it holds it tight just like it's supposed to. So this can go to an anchor, to a rescuer, to a victim, and that's the cinch knot. It's exactly like one side of the double fisherman. So once again, I take a loop and then I just wrap the rope onto itself and feed that through, and then it cinches up. All right, last one, kind of a bonus. We've got 2 anchors, and we're going to tie our bowline. Now, a bowline can be tied with a bite. So I take a bite, pass it through, come around, follow itself back. That's a bowline. And I dress it. For this particular anchor, I'm going to put a carabiner on here and safety that off, and this will allow me to change direction very easily, but these should be secure anchors. Another method for 2 anchors, if the anchors are marginal, we can do our bowline, let the tail hang out, and do a double becket. Remember that from before? You give yourself a little more tail. Much more tail. Do your retrace back there. All right, we're gonna get a little more tail here so I can show you. All right, double becket or double sheet bend. Retrace it so that everything's parallel. Now this, you have to know your direction ahead of time, but it's very secure. If I lose this anchor, it's still going to hold. It's not going to give me a jerk. You can adjust this by pulling this forward and adjusting that way. But it's very secure. Doesn't need a safety here because it's tied off, the tail is tied off there. That's it for the rescue knots.